All right. So I think you all have a critical thinking challenge that you are just dying to share with us. So who wants to go first? Which group wants to go first? All right, go right ahead.
So this is Divine Nine, and your first question was, what can marketers learn from the TED Talk episode?
Yes, sir. That's it.
If a person introduces an object to people that are unfamiliar with that object, those individuals have the ability to learn about that object if given proper motivation. The synergy or cooperation among the children paved the way to further understanding of the machine in the wall. We also learned that while machines can be better teachers, humans are valuable assets for motivation. Those who understand how the machines worked were the ones who set the trend for further learning. So marketers are able to infer that sometimes even the unfamiliar can be popular in areas if someone sets the trend for further understanding.
Okay.
And the second question was?
Strategies. Yeah.
Yeah, strategies. Success strategies can be developed by using the tool the speaker used in the TED Talk video, which is the scientific method.
Okay.
He observed that certain areas of the world were poor in regards to education. After he collected information about how people in the area could be better educated, he formed a hypothesis or experiment to test what kind of things the children were interested in learning and how passionate they were about learning something new. After many experiments and learning what works or what does not work, the speaker was finally able to come up with a great idea that could prove to be a great success.
Okay, very good. Yeah, marketing is a science, and we can learn how you can do that kind of science. And this is an example of a social science experiment, right? Not done in a lab. And that's a lot of what we do in marketing is field type work in terms of we don't have labs. There are some marketers, and I'll show you a video of one who actually does have a lab and does some stuff in a lab. But for the most part, we're out and we're doing these kinds of field experiments or field research in terms of consumer behavior. So I think that's important. Okay. Which other group wants to go? We'll start over here.
We're 9 over par. So we did two questions. It says, the value of co-creation in marketing has limitless possibilities. By adapting to customers' ever-changing needs and interests, companies are better suited to provide a competitive product in what can only be described as the era of mass customization. In the TED Talk, they specifically targeted children in rural areas that had no pre-exposure to technology or the information addressed. And a lot of companies are actually doing this now through secure internet portals to talk to other companies to create better products. So they talk to companies that they're not, like Procter & Gamble talks to a lot of chemical companies because Procter & Gamble doesn't specialize in chemicals but can use the applications that come from them. And we said one example was that people are using to market to us now is the location services and apps, and they look at your buyer history and they use that to target the marketing specifically to you, so they customize the marketing to you. So if you bought an iPad, you might get an email about an iPad case.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think that's important, and this idea of mobile technology and what we can do in terms of, it's kind of creepy. We'll talk about ethics, so you might want to think about that. All right.
All right, so we talked about how more and more products are being individualized, and we just gave a couple examples of Nike, how you can customize shoes now on the online store, and also Coca-Cola, how they have names on the bottles and stuff, so it makes you feel like they made it for you, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, just about that, how they're trying to fulfill our needs by giving us more options to create our own products.
Okay. So that's the idea of value co-creation and mass customization.
Yeah.
Even in a world in which we have billions of people now, we can still have some individualization, and I think people want that. I think that's important. All right. Okay.
So our group said that in co-creation, the consumer has the The video showed evidence of the success because the ability to influence others is greater. The children in the video, with the ability to choose what they were wanting to learn, learned better because they weren't being forced to learn something. It wasn't being told this is what you have to do. They were given the tools and then they were able to decide what they wanted and then they were able to excel in what they wanted to know. And that's better learning if you're learning stuff that you're interested in. And so they were more excited to learn, and therefore if the consumer is able to give input into the products, then there's a greater chance that they're going to buy them because it's what they actually want. And so for our strategy, we just said the best thing to do would be to have high regards for consumer input alongside opening the door for its advertising and leaving things open-ended. Don't define the market, let it define itself. And so what we were kind of meaning by that is, like with Coke, they're not just a drink anymore. It's a relationship builder. Here you have to find someone else and you have to open your Coke together, or you have to hug someone to get a Coke. They're developing something other than just a drink now. And so we decided, don't let yourself be defined by something so simple as that. Don't label yourself, because when you label something, you can define it and like chain it down. So make your product be open-ended, allow it to have opportunities to develop into other areas. And also, if you're like so restrictive, like even with your target market, then sometimes you're excluding other opportunities where that product could be sold or it could be useful if you're just focusing on, well, we know these people will like it this way. Some other person may have a better idea for it, and so maybe not being so strict about how you market your products.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and one of the things that you picked on was this idea of education. Education and marketing is absolutely critical, that you educate your consumer, but they have to want it. And one of the things that made that educational experience different than a lot of educational experiences that you'll get, and one of the things that I think colleges have got to learn to do in our marketing, is we've got to figure out what it is that you want to learn. Rather than just saying, this is the standard curriculum and you're going to learn it, you have the ability to really radically change the way you learn and what you want to know. So I think that's an important part of it. So that's a good idea on value co-creation. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
For the first question, we saw a man stand before a group of people and talk about other nations and what he's done for them. And so we found that in the global era of co-creation, it's going to take everyone's input, good or bad, to tell us what a product is working and what's not working. Without that, we do not have the ability to make a product or a service that can affect everybody, because we just don't make products that work for one nation. I mean, everything we make is global. I mean, it stretches across the world. And so without that input from everybody, we don't know what's going to reach across all these cultures and all these other rural areas that we don't have a lot of contact with. And so like we saw like the grandmothers who from one country being Skyped over to another to teach them. It's going to take input from area marketers to learn that without that input from everybody else, it's going to be affected by this product. They can't really market that product to the right people. It can't reach everybody that they could without it. And for the second question, we said that in our data-driven society, we really want to show that it works. We want to see that a product works. We just want to buy into a hype. We want to know that a product's been tested, it's been proven, that we want to spend our money on something that's guaranteed to work. And so he went out, he had an idea, he put the computers on the wall, he showed that this idea works, and that's how he's selling. He's saying, hey, look at my results, come fund me, we can make this work. And in our society, that's what we want. We want something that's proven to work, and not just something, hey, this is mine.
Okay. And going along with your globalization, isn't it interesting though that, yeah, it's a long distance and a vastly different culture, but because of technology and the internet, we really are becoming a smaller society as well, and impacting each other, and that give and take in this value co-creation era. Okay, very good. All right.
We said the use of technology to gain feedback to help create a customer relationship. So overall, it enhances the experience of the customer and makes them feel valued. From the video, we learned that applying co-creation to kids as customers, they are getting what they want, and they also feel like they're valued as an individual. They're learning, they're not even knowing that they're learning, it's just some new technologies just came at them. And in this era, you have to go above and beyond to make a sale and stand out in the market. So the company can apply this by making the customer relationship more personable, along with making them feel valuable and invaluable as an individual.
Okay, I think that's important. One of the things that we really do want in this era that you picked up on is, even though we're highly connected, because we're so highly connected, we do want to feel some human connection. How many of you hate calling a company and getting the press 1 for this, press 2 for that? We do. We hate it. And so I think that is one of the things that we can learn, is that you still have to have those touch points with your consumer so that they do feel connected with you and have some connection. Okay? All right.
So we came up with, we can learn that developing relationships with customers will always help us as marketers understand more of what customers are wanting. In the video, the speaker uses statistics and empathy to get his point across in order to get people to want to get involved. So we can apply these strategies to help learn more about what our customer base wants and figuring out what triggers individuals to want to buy things and or get involved with other products.
Okay? And you touched on statistics. That's going to be an important part of this course in terms of marketing research and understanding people. And what is it we can know about them and how can we know it? And that's going to be really, really critical. And it's tough. One of the things that you'll find that people say is marketing isn't rocket science. No, it's not. It's a lot harder because we're dealing with people. Rocket science works within very well-defined parameters of physics. We're dealing with people. It's much more complex than rocket science. Okay? All right? Yes, ma'am.
Exposure, we kind of answered both questions in the paragraph. So the experiment that Sue got an interest set up showed that when given new technology they didn't have seen before, children from impoverished countries were more than able to teach themselves to use it to learn new things. The value of co-creation teaches us that the relationship with prospective consumers is important to cultivate for both parties. If we apply what we learned in the video, we can see that sometimes all consumers need is to be given a product they will teach themselves how to best apply it to their personal lives. From there, we can let the consumer tell us as marketers how to develop a product that is tailored to their needs.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. Consumers will take products and use them in ways that they didn't think about using them before. And you can use that as part of your team to build a better product. A lot of people are using, for example, iPads in business. Was iPad really invented for business? No, it's really not, but a lot of businesses are using it. It was really invented to be sort of a kind of a cool entertainment way to surf the web and things like that. But it's been taken by businesses because it's so cool and everybody wanted it, that a lot of companies were then giving it to their customer or their employees to help them with customers. And they found ways of using it in presentations and things like that I don't think Apple necessarily intended it to be used for. And we're using it in schools. Schools are now giving iPads out as a way, and colleges as a way of marketing. Come to us, use this, and we've got this cool, platform that we'll give you that will help you with your schoolwork. Okay? All right, on the back row?
How did you say his name? Is it
Mitra, I think.
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure. In the video, Mitra markets his ideas to the audience. Because everyone has relations, parents, children, Mitra is able to use emotions to market to everyone. In the video, Mitra speaks of the places that good teachers do not want to go, so the children in those places are without proper instruction. It is in such places as these that he conducted his experiments. In the experiments, the children were teaching themselves, the children were the market making the product, which was knowledge. Through curiosity, the children invested themselves in the product of knowledge. As a strategy for business, Mitra vaguely introduced the product to play upon curiosity of the value of the product, and the value of the product ended up paying off. Another business strategy was that he gave the children a grandmother, which was a positive influence to the product. And starting the product with children left an opportunity for a lifelong relationship. This co-creation was kept as Mitra came back to retest the children's use of the product. The last aspect was that Mitra put the children into groups, which is something of self-advertisement within the group. The more people, the more complex and well-thought responses. We thought it was kind of funny that we were ourselves in a group discussing it. And therefore, we were the market of the knowledge children in the product. We were buying and selling the product to ourselves with only a beginning influence. We got to product is our perspectives. And if your company is able to use self-investment, people investing in a product will invest in themselves, and this will sell the product.
Okay, very good. I like your touching on emotion. Marketing is a science, but it's also an art. And emotion plays an enormously big part of that art in motivating people, isn't it? What are some of the best motivators? And one of the things that we have to think about in terms of ethics is fear. So we'll talk about ethics, so think about that as you think about this idea of value co-creation. Fear can be a very powerful motivator. All right? Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
Our group talked a lot about how we learned from our video that his whole concept, it started as a basis of technology, but it kind of ended on a basis of relationships. So he gave the students the access to the technology, but then the students form relationships. Like you could see it with the friends of the little girl that became the teacher to the other kids her age, and then we added more relationships, and when we added the grandmother, and when he encouraged them, and when he brought it into the classroom, and we had networks of relationships. And then he finished on that where he not only wanted more money and technology and support for it, but he wanted 100 million more grandmas. So he said, a relationship with your customer is really important in marketing too, and it's kind of about if a company were to reach out to me and ask, don't just give me the press 1 for customer service and press 2 for returns and 3 for whatever. If they were to call me and say, how do you like your service and how can we make it work better for you? So then that goes into us answering the second question, which was kind of similar to your response, which was tailoring, mass customization. So your relationship should always kind of be evolving and researching and tailoring to your customers' needs.
I think you've hit on a really important point, that we cannot just have technology for technology's sake. Technology is wonderful, but ultimately it is about building relationships and this human connection. And if we're just relying on technology just for the sake of technology, that's not necessarily a good thing, and I think that's really important. That's an important takeaway. And an important thing to understand in terms of strategy, that you just can't rely on technology to be the end-all and be-all, because it's fundamentally about providing a good product or service. And that technology can help you with that, but it's just a tool. It's not an end in and of itself, and I think that's important. Yes, sir.
All right, so some of the things that we took away from the TEDx video, first off, if there's a good cause behind it, people are going to buy into it. There's going to be an emotional tie that I've heard multiple people touch on. The second thing is marketing is a process. It doesn't happen instantly. There's a trial and error to it. And if you looked at what he did, he was going all over the place and trying different countries. And it wasn't one off the bat that, hey, I recognize this work. It took a lot of trials and a lot of tests. Another one that I've heard people touch on was the grandma effect, and those making the personal connections and good relationships and help build trust and lead the customer to believe that you actually truly care about them, not just trying to sell a product. You have an emotional investment in them. And lastly, be passionate about what you do. If you watch the video, he's extremely passionate about it. So that ties into one of our strategies, is if you're passionate about it, that's going to motivate your customers, and that's going to make them passionate about the product as well. And like we were talking about, emotion and passion is a big part to help sell the product. Be genuine to the customer, listening to them and their needs, which in turn be responsive. If you look at that, there was a need for more education. He was responsive to that need, responsive to what the customer would need. And then lastly, find connections and between yourself and the customer that helps build a personal bond you can grow on.
Okay, very good. I think that that's important. This idea of being passionate about something. If you are really not interested or you're really not into it, you're not going to be very successful at it. And successful people find things that they are passionate about. And when we talk about goals today, that's one of the things that you should think about for yourself, is what is it that you can be passionate about? Are you just going to go to work for a company and put in 20 years, just sort of go through the motions, or are you going to really focus on what you can be successful at? Very good. All right. Yes, sir.
What we learned based on watching the video was that we could learn how to use ideas and marketing group to introduce to sell the product. For example, would be Subway's innovating on the product with late, like their biscuits and gravy chips and Reuben chips. And the Mountain Dews are always changing up their flavors. So what we saw is we can use analysis to find which product is more popular versus strategies for success would be the method through which we choose to market. One method would be emotions. Pretty much everybody's saying it, but like touch specific types of people when you're selling a product. Find what kind of people you're going to grab. And then another method is using factual data. So as I said, like Mountain Dew and Lay's, they all do. And the last strategy would be to incorporate the value of co-creation of business and consumer interaction.
Okay, very good. And one of the things that you touched on, and all of these things that you all have talked about throughout, and one of the things that you're talking about is like new product and innovation. That's an important part of it. Companies constantly have to be adapting and involved in new product. And all of this stuff, the people who are really successful in this class, and the people who are really successful, I think, in life, are ones that can figure out how all of this stuff integrates together. And that becomes really important. All right. Are there any other groups? Okay. I'll stop and repeat. All right, so if you will log in for the next Critical Thinking Challenge, you will log into your D2L account. And I will view this as a student. On the news item, I've posted the next Critical Thinking Challenge. I've posted links to the videos that are up for the last two lectures, Lecture 2 and Lecture 3. I hope to get Lecture 4, which is today's lecture, up. But if you go to that one that says Group Critical Thinking Challenge, there's 2 word problems for you to solve in terms of how to calculate grades. So I want you to look at, this is part of the value co-creation, and I want you to understand the strategy, look at your syllabus to figure out your strategy for getting the A, because that's what you all want, right? I can guarantee you there's a lot of you that are not going to get A's. But I want to help you strategize as much as you can to get that A. So look at the syllabus and figure out how you can get those points that are necessary. And I've given you 2 word problems to figure out. I know you hated word problems in school, didn't you? And you hated math. Word problems. This is not word problems in algebra. It's just word problems in basics, figuring out your grade. So there's that. Also, if you want to go back and review, since the news feed will drop down and things will drop off of it, if you want to, for the exams, under the content area, this is part of my value co-creation, I have posted, under each module, I have posted links to the videos that you can then easily go to and find. So you can click on them from the front page fairly easily right after they're posted, but as I post more and more news items, and I do post a lot of news items. For example, I posted that you all got the bonus points for the first day's Critical Thinking Challenge. And then for the second Critical Thinking Challenge, there was actually a winner. It was the group that actually did the compare and contrast, took both sides of the problem and gave me an answer to both. And so they won that Critical Thinking Challenge, and I'll post those on the news feed. And so you'll want to be able to then go easily find your videos if you're missing something from your notes. And you can do that under the modules. So as we go into the next exam, I'll post a new module. And then finally, the comprehensive final, if you want to view any of them, they'll all be there for you to look at. So any questions about that?
I do.
Yes?
How is the exam? Is it like essays or multiple choice?
It's multiple guess.
Multiple guess.
Multiple guess.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
A lot of you will guess. At least that's been my experience, based on the numeric scores that are received in this class. I used to not really believe in closed book exams, but I found that students are not reading, and I used to let you take it an open book, and then they would never get through the exam. It just became a nightmare. So if you take my other classes, though, I don't usually give in-class take-home tests. I don't give in-class tests. I give take-home tests. So that's a shameless plug for you all to take my classes. All right, so we need to talk about strategies. We need to talk about, and your text talks a lot about different kinds of organizations. And you should know that for the exam, but a lot of what the text focuses on are big companies. And so I'm going to touch a little bit on this, but then I'm going to spend more time, and then I'm going to give you time at the end of class to go and work on your word problems so you can develop a strategy for achieving the grade that you want in this class at the end of the hour. The text focuses on these big organizations, like 3M. What does 3M make? They make Post-it notes. That's maybe their most famous product, is Post-it notes. But they also make all kinds of other stuff, don't they? Like what?
Post-it pens.
What?
Post-it pens.
They make pens?
Post-it pens.
I'm sorry, still.
Combination of Post-its.
Oh yeah, they came out with a different thing. So Post-its are actually one of the things that makes 3M successful, is that culture at that company, and one of their strategies for success is to allow creativity among their employees so they can work on projects that are not necessarily official projects that are authorized. And one of the things that 3M develops are adhesives. That's sort of what they're known for. And this scientist in a lab came up with an adhesive that most of the time what you want in terms of an adhesive is what? Something that's really adhesive. Think about super glue. What is great about super glue? How many of you love super glue? You can fix anything with super glue, can't you? You can put back together the statue. There's a rather old movie now that maybe some of you have seen called The Goonies. Remember The Goonies, where they knock over the statue of David and they're trying to put it back together? And what do they use? Super glue. Now, super glue is also really messy, and if you get it on your fingers and you do this, all of a sudden your fingers are stuck together, right? So it's really, really sticky. This adhesive wasn't particularly adhesive, but it turns out that you could stick one piece of paper to another and remove it without ripping. And so by accident, by allowing people to be creative, they came up with this thing. But 3M also invents all other kinds of adhesives. How many of you had braces when you were in high school? A lot of hands are going up. Anybody have the Light Cure brace? They put the bracket on and they shine the light on your tooth? Anybody have that? 3M invented that. They developed, so when I got my braces years and years and years ago, before they had Light Cure, they would prep your tooth and then they would put the bracket on with the cement and they had to hold it there. And it took actually a long time to put on a full set of brackets for your teeth, because they'd have to hold it and wait for the adhesive to cure, and that just was a matter of time. The Light Cure came out and they can attach brackets really, really quickly because it cured the adhesive in record-breaking time. So 3M did that. One of my friends who was a sales professional went to work for 3M when they first developed the Light Cure, and that was what she did. She sold to orthodontists that were doing Light Cure. So 3M is a big company, and so there's a big umbrella company, and then they have strategic business units under that. And so you have a publicly traded company, and you have, shareholders up here. And in theory, they elect the board of directors. And at this level, you're setting, in terms of strategy and goals, broad, sort of company policy. What is it we're going to do? Mergers and acquisitions kinds of things. And then you have, the officers. And then below the officers, you have, different strategic business units. And you've got this sort of pyramid effect. Strategic business units operate largely on their own. So my sister, for example, is a president for L3 Integrated Systems. Now, L3 is a large defense contractor. That's the umbrella corporation. There's a CEO over that. And under that, they have a company, a strategic business unit called Integrated Systems. And what she does and what her company does is they modify things for the government. They're a defense contractor, And one of the projects that they've worked on, they've modified, is the C-130. So they have their own budget, they have their own planning, and then you at the corporate level, at the broad corporate level, under the umbrella of 3M, they set general policy and sort of a vision and mission for the whole company. And as you go down these layers of the organization, what happens to what you're doing in terms of developing strategies? Are they more general or do they become more specific? They become more specific. To the point where you start getting down to, you know, organizational units or departments, and they plan as well. So for example, at the beginning of the academic year, we had a department meeting in the marketing department to determine what our mission and goals and values were for the department. Now the university sets broad range goals, right? The president and the Board of Regents of Oklahoma colleges say basically what is the mission and goal and objective of the university, for example, at UCO. What do you think it is? Something broad. To provide quality educational programs at the baccalaureate and master's level for individuals in the central Oklahoma region, something like that. I don't have it exact, but it's this broad goal. What do you think, when we get down to the department level, in the marketing department, what do you think our goals are? And our strategic objectives? Yeah, it's going to be, we provide substantive knowledge in the core areas of marketing within the College of Business and Professional Sales. We have two programs in the marketing department. One is our general marketing degree, and the other is the professional sales degree, which some of you should consider because fundamentally everybody sells something, and we're the only program in the college that can say we have 100% placement of our graduates and our minors, or our majors and our minors. So if you get either a major or a minor in professional selling, we have 100% placement in those fields. Most of our students make over 6 figures in their first year out in the professional sales field. So it's something that you might want to consider. Those of you who are accounting majors, you'll go to intermediate. There will be tiers, and then you'll come see me. Trust me. You know, so ultimately, it's a really good major. And that's what our goals are. It's not to produce graduates overall. We're producing what? So the university wants to produce graduates at the baccalaureate and master's level among a wide variety of majors. So what kinds of majors do we have here at UCO? Well, we have all of the business majors: marketing, management, accounting, finance, economics, sales, energy economics, legal studies. And then, so that's the sort of the goal of our college. What does UCO produce? Historically, what was UCO? We're a teaching school. So our first goal was to produce what? When we first started out as the Territorial Normal School back in 1890, what did we produce? Teachers. That's still an important mission of this institution. That's one of the major colleges. So we produce teachers. And within that college, they produce what kinds of teachers? Well, there are all kinds. All the way from what? Kindergarten through 12th grade. We have a College of Liberal Arts. They produce majors in what? Criminal justice, sociology, all of those things. So the broad mission is to provide a well-educated populace. At the department level, our mission is pretty much to provide marketing information to business majors, because everybody who's a business major has to take marketing, just like you have to take a course in accounting and finance and economics. But then we're more specific in that we want to produce marketing majors and professional selling majors. So it becomes much more specific. Now, in looking at these, one of the things that we're going to do to be successful is we're going to have to decide what it is we want to do. And the text talks about a seminal article in marketing by Theodore Levitt called Marketing Myopia, where companies that may have been successful at one point in time are not as successful as they maybe could have been because they became far too narrowly focused. For example, railroad companies. They focused in on being railroad companies, and a lot of those companies that were huge companies during the robber baron era of the Industrial Revolution are no longer in existence today. Why? Because they were too myopic. What does that mean, they're myopic?
They focused on transportation.
They didn't.
It's cheaper to do it.
They focused on what?
Transportation.
They didn't focus on transportation. They focused on being a railroad company. And they should have been focusing on what? Transportation. They were too myopic. They were really good at being railroad companies when maybe what happened in the way we move products and goods and services as we went through the Industrial Revolution and developed new and better ways of moving stuff. Railroads are still important, but there are not nearly as many of them as there were at one point in time. How do we move stuff now? Planes, trucks, ships. Shipping is enormously important. 90% of everything comes across in ships. The stuff that you use all the time. And I alluded to that with a book by Rose George called 90% of Everything. So they became too myopic. So we want to set goals and objectives. Now, what makes a good goal? You all have goals. And one of the things that we'll talk about when we talk about consumer behavior a lot is something called rational actor theory. So what's a good goal? What is your goal? Somebody give me a goal. What? To graduate. Okay, so we've got this goal. To graduate. Is that a good goal?
Yeah.
You all are saying yes. You're saying what? Make a career. I don't know. Maybe you're just aimlessly wandering about.
Retire.
Like my people in the desert for thousands of years. My mother's Jewish, so I'm a Jew.
To retire.
Huh?
To retire.
To retire. That's your goal. I'm not sure that's a good goal. Okay, what did you said no, this is to graduate. That's not a good goal.
You're supposed to put like a measurable time frame on a goal.
Oh, okay. So maybe we want to be able to measure just to graduate. Well, you want to do the 5-year plan? The 7-year plan? The 10-year plan? I mean, just to graduate. What? You want the 4-year plan? How many people actually graduate in 4 years? Not a lot anymore. It's far less than 60% graduate within 4 years. Why is that?
Most people work jobs.
Most people work anymore. They what? They keep adding classes. They keep changing their majors. That can affect it. If you change your major, all of a sudden, oops, you know, may not. So you said that you want to be able to, so you want to have a specific time period. So to graduate, let's make it better. Graduate by when? May. Most of you are juniors in here. Is that right? How many of you are juniors? The vast majority. Any seniors? Oh, a lot of you just put off taking my class until your senior year, even though you knew you had to have it. Why?
I graduated high school in 2014.
Okay, but that's not telling me why you waited to take this class until your senior.
I just came to UCO, so I was from another
Okay,
school.
all right.
So like I'm only going to spend a year and a half here.
Okay, so most of you are juniors in here. There are a few of you that are seniors that put off taking principles of marketing because you're accounting majors and you just didn't want to do marketing because you want to focus on debits on the left and credits on the right. Boring, snooze. How do you stay awake long enough to do that? But, so most of you are juniors, so if you're a junior, you should in theory graduate when? And basically 2 years from now. So you want to do what? Graduate by what? May 2017? Okay? So now we've got some measure. Is it a good goal now? Graduate by May 2017. You'd say yes?
Still not very.
What?
It needs to have like a specific.
Oh, so now we've got to measure. We also need, okay, now you want specificity. What, you want everything? You want your cake and eat it too? So you want to graduate with what? A marketing major, professional sales, neuro-linguistic programming. Some of you are going to become professional salespeople, trust me. Marketing major, professional sales by 2017. Is that a good goal? Okay, what's the third thing that makes it a good goal?
You can add a GPA to that.
You could add a GPA, that would be, you want to graduate. And I used to tell students that your GPA didn't matter. All that mattered was getting a degree. Companies didn't care. But in an age in which technology allows us to be enormously specific with regard to whether or not we're successful as companies, they come up with all kinds of metrics. And so I am one of the ones that coaches in the professional sales program, and we take our students to competition. And last year when I was at the competition, one of our big sponsors for the competition is Paycom, and I asked them all the time, what are you looking for in terms of our sales students? And they said, well, we've actually started adding a requirement that they have to graduate with a 3.55 GPA, because we've noticed that those that graduate with less than that are less successful at our sales training than those that graduate with more. So I used to say that it didn't matter, so a GPA might be really, really good. The other thing, so we want measurable, specific. The third requirement for a good goal is that it should be realistic. It should be realistic. If you set goals that are unattainable, are you going to achieve them? No, and you're going to do what?
Fail.
You're going to, and what can happen if you fail? You can quit. You can be, it's not that you shouldn't have stretch goals. You should. You should try to have stretch goals. You should have goals that force you to grow. But if they're completely unrealistic, you know, what would be an unrealistic goal? I'm going to graduate from UCO, you're a junior right now, by May of 2016. Well, how many hours are you going to have to do that? Is that realistic? To take 40 hours, 24 hours in 24 hours a semester, is that really a realistic goal?
No.
No. You're going to go crazy and probably not be very, very satisfied. So it should be realistic. Companies should have stretch goals, but if you make it too unrealistic, when we had a former president, who shall remain nameless, Roger Webb, he said at a planning retreat one time, we're going to show OU how it's done. We're going to be the cool school. And I sat there and I thought, no. Right? I mean, that's not, I mean, we're never going to have a D1 football team that makes it to a national championship. At least not in my lifetime. And saying things like that was not particularly helpful. It was not particularly realistic. So it's not that they shouldn't be stretched, but they should be realistic. If you said I'm going to graduate and you're a junior by May of 2016, that may be a little bit of a stretch. And so your goals should be realistic. They should be challenging, but they should be realistic. They should be specific. I want to graduate with a specific major. And they should be measurable. And if you don't meet them, then you can do what? And companies all the time don't necessarily meet their goals. In fact, we've got a big example of that. Chesapeake just announced, what, this last couple of weeks? Billions of dollars in losses. So you're going to have to do what? Reevaluate and readjust and fix it, right? All right. So are there any questions about strategy? Okay, so you have your critical thinking assignment. You're going to strategize on how to achieve your goal. Come up with your answers. Did the roll sheet make it all the way around? Okay. Give me your group projects. Have somebody come up and give me your group projects. Work on your strategy for success in this class. And I will see you all on Tuesday.